G'day, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another crazy dose of EV and net zero insanity in MGUY EV news for Saturday the 2nd of November 2024. Be sure to follow me on the usual socials for more content, links in the description, and please make sure you're subscribed and have enabled all notifications so you don't miss out on any future videos. And if you'd like to support this channel, why not buy me a coffee? Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. So if you were just some random bloke who wanted to desecrate thousands of hectares of pristine Australian outback for some random construction project, you would rightly be in deep trouble. The environmentalists would be down on you like a ton of bricks. You'd be tied up in the courts with litigation for years and years, and rightly so, because there's a lot of questions to be answered. But the exception to this is if you want to build wind farms and solar panels, because then go for your life. Go for your life. Where are the environmentalists? Crickets. This is the cognitive dissonance that they have to live with. Whereas on the one hand, they need the wind and solar because they refuse to accept that nuclear is the obvious option to solve this problem. But on the other hand, they want to preserve the environment. And finally, some of the scientists are coming out and realizing this absolute hypocrisy. Out of control, scientists plead over wind and solar farm destruction. Ardent supporters of action on climate change are warning of another looming crisis, damage to sensitive ecosystems to make way for renewable energy. They say it's time for a rethink. Ecological experts are joining calls for a temporary halt to new large-scale renewables in crucial nature hotspots amid growing concern over the destruction of the environment to make way for green energy projects. Yes, we're destroying the planet to save the planet, apparently. Former Queensland Government Principal Botanist Jeanette Kemp said there would be considerable backlash if the general public was fully aware of the extent of land clearing and fragmentation of valuable habitat to make way for some wind farms in Queensland. Because of the great speed at which renewable developments are going ahead, i.e. they have no scrutiny whatsoever, we are paying a very high price in terms of the degradation of rugged, remote and ecologically important ranges, she said. Former Queensland Chief Scientist Professor Hugh Possingham agreed that some developments should be temporarily suspended while detailed regional biodiversity mapping is undertaken to show areas suitable for renewables development and no-go zones, which should never be considered. I mean, this whole situation is an absolute scandal. These wind farms, wind factories and solar factories are being put up all over the country, taking up thousands and thousands of hectares of agricultural land, beautiful, unspoilt landscapes that are home to a huge range of Australian biodiversity. But you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when it's wind factories and solar factories, because net zero trumps everything. And it is absolutely scandalous how this is being pushed through, avoiding all the scrutiny that it should have, that any other project would have. It's absolutely disgraceful. Take a look at this video. I did a video on this a little while ago. I'll link it in the description and up here. But just look at the scale of these wind factories. Just look at the scale of it. They just go on and on and on and on and on. And this is just a tiny part of Queensland. Read the whole article, link in the description. It's absolutely shocking and eye-opening. And this is a kind of tongue-in-cheek article, really, but with a very serious point about the effects of offshore wind turbines on wildlife, birds, whales, and all the maritime sea creatures and stuff like that. New report suggests whale psychiatrist Trump may be right about wind farms and whales. US Bureau of Ocean Management report says whales, dolphins, birds and bats can all be injured by wind turbine construction and offshore fishing harmed. Joe Rogan's interview with President Donald Trump certainly covered a wide range of topics. While my colleague Mike Lachance discussed the interview, as the podcast touched upon the subject of whale deaths associated with offshore wind farm construction, I thought I would chime in here. I've noted the spate of whale deaths recorded along the East Coast. At one point, New Jersey Republicans demanded that construction on offshore wind farm projects be halted for up to 60 days to see if it reduced the number of whales washing up dead. The moratorium did not go through. In fact, federal authorities approved the construction of up to 195 wind turbines off New Jersey's coast in July of this year. With this in mind, let's focus on Donald Trump, whale psychiatrist.
Happening with the whales. I've read about this.
Well, they say that the wind drives them crazy. It's a vibration because you have those, those things that 50-story buildings, some of them.
Right, and they're
50.
super sensitive to vibrations.
They have those,
sounds.
the wind is rushing, the things are blowing, it's a vibration, and it makes noise. You know what it is? I want to be a whale psychiatrist. It drives the whales frickin' crazy. And something happens with them. But for whatever reason, they're getting washed up on shore, and yet the environmentalists
conveniently ignored by the
but the
environmental
environmentalists, they don't talk about it.
Right.
Yep, absolutely. I won't play too much or else I'll get copy striked. You've heard the quote there. Trump has been an advocate for keeping America clean and healthy. He has not advocated for the anti-carbon push based on pseudoscience and the rush into green energy projects put forth by environmentalists. Trump attacked environmental measures that he says harm the US economy throughout the interview by claiming that a cottage industry of environmentalists and lawyers thrives on fighting enterprises like fracking. He contended that environmental lobbying impedes economic progress. Trump said clean air and water are important, but US economic vitality is suffering, when Rogan questioned him about striking a balance between environmental effect and economic development. Well, again, read the whole thing, link in the description. But not only are we destroying the landscape, we're destroying the oceans as well. And yet all of these things just get waved through because net zero trumps everything. And if people, as the previous article said, if people really knew what was being done to the landscape, sacrificed at the altar of net zero, they would be appalled and scandalized. So I urge you to share these articles with friends, social media, because people just don't understand how much damage is being done. So now we're coming on to a couple of stories about how European car makers are being absolutely destroyed by net zero. We'll come on to Stellantis in a minute, but Volkswagen hit by 60% fall in profits as sales in China slump. Drop comes as car maker faces battle with unions over plan to shut 3 factories in Germany. Volkswagen has reported a 60% drop in profits amid a slump in sales in China, with the car maker emphasizing the difficulties it faces as it prepares to close factories in Germany for the first time. Germany's biggest car maker has told workers it is considering shutting 3 plants serving its main Volkswagen brand in its home market and cutting staff pay, raising the prospect of an extended battle with unions representing 120,000 German employees. Car makers around the world are struggling with limp demand for new vehicles, i.e. EVs, as higher interest rates take their toll, while several, including VW's German rivals BMW and Mercedes-Benz, have reported that demand in China in particular has dropped. The British sports car brand Aston Martin also confirmed on Wednesday that the weak macroeconomic environment in China was dragging it back. The older manufacturers are also having to come up with significant investment to switch from petrol and diesel production to electric. But growth in sales of battery electric cars has slowed in some key markets. That is an understatement of the week. At the same time, new electric car producers from China are trying to win market share. Yep, it's a disaster. And here we have Stellantis. This is an article from the Telegraph in the UK. So Vauxhall is the brand there. Sales at Vauxhall owner plunge by a quarter amid EV slowdown. European car manufacturers face struggle with Chinese EVs for control of the mass market. The owner of Vauxhall has seen its sales plunge by more than a quarter amid production issues and an electric vehicle EV slowdown in Europe. Stellantis, which also owns Citroën, Fiat and Peugeot, said revenues slumped from €45.1 billion to €33 billion in the third quarter of 2024. The number of vehicles shipped by the company slipped from 1.5 million to 1.3 million over the period. Bosses have blamed delayed model launches and tough competition in Europe, as well as lower numbers of cars shipped to the US, where the company is seeking to shift a surplus of cars that have piled up in sales lots. In Europe, Stellantis and other car makers have complained about tough new regulations aimed at boosting take-up of EVs, even as inflation has battered households and led to softer demand for the cars. Sales in Europe dropped from €14.1 billion to €12.5 billion in the third quarter, while vehicle shipments fell from 599 million to 496 million. Well, if you've been following the channel for a while, you'll know exactly why this is happening, because the EU net zero mandate is forcing car makers to switch from cars that people actually want, petrol and diesel cars, and towards cars that people don't want, namely EVs. And so they're selling less EVs, but they can't compete with the Chinese, who can make them cheaper and will undercut them in the market. It's a complete recipe for disaster. And if that's not bad enough, in the US, Ford is having an absolute disaster of a time trying to shift its EVs and making massive losses. Here we go. Ford continues posting huge losses on its electric lines, while automakers reverse course on EVs. The Biden-Harris administration received more bad news this week regarding its goal of getting most drivers in the US to switch to electric vehicles. Not a chance. Ford Motor Company on Monday posted a loss of $1.224 billion, billion with a B, on its electric vehicle lines. That brings the company's loss on EVs in the first 9 months of this year to $3.7 billion. Unbelievable. Unlike other major automakers, Ford separates the financials on its EV business into a separate category called Model E. Energy watchdog Robert Bryce points out on his Substack that the company's losses on Model E this year are equal to its gross profit on its internal combustion engine business, Ford Blue. In 2023, Ford lost $4.7 billion on its EV sales, and in 2022 it lost $2.2 billion. The third quarter numbers simply show yet again that Ford's leadership has made a colossal blunder, Bryce writes. He estimates the company lost over $58,000 on each EV it sold in the third quarter. That is unsustainable. Company executives sometimes make bad decisions, such as when Hertz decided that it would transition a large chunk of its rental fleet over to electric. Well, we all know what happened there. Check my previous videos on the gift that keeps on giving, the Hertz debacle. The plan failed spectacularly in the face of depreciation and repair costs, which cost the company an estimated $1 billion. In March, Hertz CEO Stephen Scherr, who set the company on its EV course, stepped down. Other rental companies haven't reported making similar mistakes. With automakers going electric, however, it wasn't just a single company. Across the board, many automakers envisioned that consumers would clamour to buy EVs, and all the automakers had to do was build them. Over the past year, however, many of them have pulled back on previously ambitious plans. It's likely, like Ford, they are not seeing good returns on their EV businesses either. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's a very interesting article. Anybody who's been following this channel for long enough, it's all old news. You know, all the stuff that's happened. They tried to skew the market, force people into buying them with subsidies and incentives. Didn't work. I think the sticks will be coming out now, like in the UK. But it's an absolute train wreck. Another Ford story here, again, shows how little demand there is for electric vehicles of any kind, Ford temporarily suspends production of all electric truck as demand remains sluggish. Ford is temporarily suspending production of its electric F-150 Lightning truck as the auto industry continues to grapple with the sluggish demand for electric vehicles and politicians turn them into a point of attack. Ford announced Thursday will be pausing its F-150 Lightning production for a couple of weeks until the beginning of the new year. It is the latest setback for the F-150 Lightning, a blockbuster Ford product that has missed sales targets. Well, maybe it's not such a blockbuster product then, is it? And necessitated cost-cutting measures and layoffs at Ford's Dearborn, Michigan plant. We continue to adjust production for an optimal mix of sales growth and profitability, Ford told National Review in a statement. And as most automakers are desperately backtracking on their mad EV plans, Jaguar is going full steam ahead. Yay, Jaguar. Jaguar to end UK car sales next month as brand axes models in favour of electric vehicles. Bravo. British car giant Jaguar has revealed it will end sales for new cars in the UK next month, following the end of production of the F-Pace SUV, with drivers forced to wait until 2026 before the new models are available for purchase. The decision comes as part of Jaguar's major brand reinvention set to be unveiled this year, which would in part focus on a new electric vehicle strategy. The entire Jaguar model range is only available to buy new from existing stock in the UK, and this has been the case for some time. However, mid-November, Jaguar will no longer offer new cars from stock in the UK. The popular XE, XF and F-Type models ended production in the summer, while E-Pace, I-Pace and F-Pace models remain in production. Jaguar's parent company JLR confirmed in a statement that from November 2024, new Jaguar sales will come to an end, ahead of our new brand reveal later this year, and product launch in 2026. Well, I can hardly wait, can you? All electric cars from Jaguar. Just bland eco blobs they will be now. Why would you bother buying a Jaguar rather than a BYD or any other kind of electric blob? No reason at all. They'll just be bland eco blobs and nobody will buy them. You heard it here first. All right, that's it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Really hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one. Bye for now.